You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Monte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
Отдача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0! Buffon shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. We ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on southamptondelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. And welcome to the show. This is the first episode of the off season. I'm sitting here on the 2nd of June, polishing this up in the last few minutes before I head off to go to sleep, or at least try. And we're here. We made it through the season. We've survived. The season review shows are over, and we're officially moving into summer. And luckily, there's plenty of football to be played. The Champions League final is now over, but the Nations League is right around the corner. Plenty of guys are off playing international matches starting soon. Maya Yoshida will be in the Copa America. So there's lots and lots of stuff to look forward to. Plus, really, when you think about it, the season isn't that far away. And I don't know if that's exciting or daunting or nerve-wracking, but I think it's mostly exciting because you look at what Ralph can do, and maybe, you know, the anticipation of some signings that we may get looks pretty good. I feel pretty good about it all. But anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. So I mentioned the end of the season reviews are done. One more kind of end of season review that will come will be from St. Mary's Musings, and I had the opportunity to be a part of the team to write about that. So I think if you look at some of the other people who took part in the writing, I'm honored to be a part of that team, and hopefully you enjoy it. Lots of personality in the writing, I think, and Jake is a great guy to allow us to do that. So hopefully you enjoy that. There will be links on Twitter and stuff when it's out. And if you got the newsletter, if you're subscribed to the newsletter, which you can do at southamptondelivery.com, the link to St. Mary's Musings was at the bottom of that. So you can make sure and get that if you haven't done so already. So just a quick heads up as to what's coming over the summer. We will still have a show every single week. It will be maybe slightly more casual from time to time. The conversation that I have with Christian Candler this week is just that. And part of that is this is the last week of school. It's also the week of AP World History grading, which is something that I grade the exams for AP World History as part of my job. And I somehow just have to find extra time to do it. And so I'm slightly stressed out, but that's okay. So Christian and I got together before the Champions League final, just in case the worst did come true, and that didn't happen. Dejan Lovren did not come on and score the winning goal, so we avoided that. But, you know, we talked before that. We talked about a number of things, from Redmond and JWP being dropped to the rest of the international squad that's going to go out and play, to the Women's World Cup, to the preseason tour, to the shirts and the uniforms and transfers. We kind of talked about it all. So Christian Candler and I will do that, and you'll get that conversation. And this will be a good indicator of what you can expect over the summer, unless, or aside from, I should say, some of the episodes that I'm hoping to put together with, some other people who I think you'll find interesting. So if those come off, that'll be great. If not, you'll get more interviews with Saints fans and discussions about Saints that I think that will be good. If there's news that needs to be talked about or discussed, we'll do it. If you have questions, we also do that. We do have a question this week, not Saints related, but still fun to talk about. So if you don't follow Christian Candler, who is this week's guest, you can do that at Candler Nero on Twitter, and on Instagram, he's at c.ndler. I will mess that up in the intro when I introduce him for real, when we recorded it live, but that's okay. Because it's correct in the show notes. So click, get there, follow him. He's a smart guy. I like him. It's fun. And I think now he's been on the show more than anybody else other than me, of course. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody's going to beat that record. And if they do, that'll be good because that probably means you had enough of listening to this. And on that note, let's get to the show. I'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Christian Candler. You can find him on Twitter at CandlerNero and on Instagram at c.nld. Well, mess that up. c.ndler. Sorry. Christian, welcome back to the show. And I think I'm counting up episodes. I think you are now officially the most frequent guest on the show. So welcome back, and thanks for giving me your time over and over and over again.
No, I'm more than honored to be back on. Thank you for continuing to invite me, and I'll hold that high. I'll put that on my resume.
Yes, do that. LinkedIn, you can request me, or your friend. I don't know. I don't use LinkedIn. The picture that I have on LinkedIn, not appropriate to have on LinkedIn. That's all I know. It's my senior picture from high school, and I'm posing with a bass guitar. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but now several of my friends have that and constantly use it on various group chats and things like that whenever I say something dumb.
Well, so I do know one of my friends, his high school LinkedIn profile that's still on LinkedIn because he can't figure out how to get back in it, says that he went to Swag University. Nice. So you aren't the worst one out there.
Hopefully not. Speaking of LinkedIn, I don't know if you follow, or Chris Mackey just requested Landon Donovan, requested to connect with Landon Donovan, and it's still pending. He's been updating his Instagram story, just kind of hoping Landon Donovan accepts, and I kind of hope he does. It's it came up, I think, as a recommended friend for him on there, so or connection or whatever it is. So I guess that means you're moving in the right direction if you're Chris. So
yeah, that's right. I'm connected with since my time at Nashville Soccer Club. I've connected with a couple of soccer players, a couple of MLS people, and then the other weird person I'm connected with on LinkedIn is the pop star Lorde, which is just kind of funny.
Yeah, I don't know how did that happen?
When she still had a LinkedIn profile when she was just getting bigger, and that was when I was making my LinkedIn profile at the beginning. So she wasn't like a full-on fledged star yet, and so she was just on there, and somehow I found her and just requested her, and she accepted, and so we're friends or whatever on LinkedIn, which is kind of funny. Nice.
I have this fear of I'm never going to look for another job because I don't want to update my LinkedIn profile. It's just it's too much work. I'm so far behind at this point.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me what my resume looks like. I'm like, I've had one job in 11 years. It's pretty standard. But anyway. But, I mean, so it is the summer. I guess this is the official first episode of the summer since we did some season review stuff last time. Yeah, we're recording on School's out. I have one more week. We're recording on June 1st. So just because I'm going to be away for work for the next week or so, and I'm going to need to focus, so we're getting this out of the way now and pre-Champions League in case. I'm not even sure what the worst case scenario for a Saints fan is in case of the Champions League. And we were talking earlier, Charlie Austin has made some headlines this morning, at least on the Saints FC hashtag on Twitter.
For me, the whole Charlie Austin thing, I don't care who you root for in this game. It's kind of fun to be a neutral and you can attach yourself to a team. And I'm sure people like Charlie Austin have friends at Liverpool or some have friends at Tottenham. It's just being aware on the internet, aware of what how your words will be received. I'm sure Charlie Austin is not the only person rooting for Liverpool on our squad, but you just got to be smarter about how you present that on the internet, I guess.
Yeah. I'm almost sure that Danny Ings is pulling for them as well. Those are all his former teammates and things like that. Yeah. But yeah, maybe you just don't post that picture. And I'd like to make fun of Charlie Austin for wearing another forward's jersey as a grown man, but I I also wear jerseys, so I can't really do that. I don't think I have any with names on the back as far as I'm aware.
Do you think it was a jersey swap? I wonder if it was one of his jersey swaps or whatever, and him and Firmino like swapped jerseys, and so that was that was one of the jerseys that he swapped or whatever.
You think him and Firmino are the same size?
That's true.
That sounds terrible. But I'm trying to think. I can never judge how big they are unless they stand next to Vestergaard, and then I'm like, oh, you're normal human size. But I think Charlie Austin, this isn't the first time he's done something like this, right? His online persona seems to be just to wind everyone up. It doesn't matter who. So maybe it's all in fun, and we're talking about him, which I guess is good too. I do have a question about the picture though. If you haven't seen the picture, it's I'm not going to retweet it. Actually, I will retweet it just so it's in my feed if you want to go look at it. It shouldn't be that hard to find.
I'm sure you've probably already seen it.
Yeah. So if people haven't seen it, it's there. I just retweeted it. That's going to probably bring me some hate, but that's okay. So, I mean, I'm just looking at the room. That's a lot of white. It's a lot of white tile, white chair, white. Like, do people in English have tile in every room? Because we have carpet almost everywhere, and not in the kitchen. But like, I don't know.
That's a lot of marble. Like even
marble. That's what it is.
A lot of marble. A lot of kids' toys in the background.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what room it is because there's like a weird chair. Like,
man, if I was a kid, I would hate for that to be my toy room.
Can you imagine how messed up your knees would be from like getting onto the seams of the tile or the marble and just like cutting your knee open as you're trying to play Legos? I don't know. I mean, and then I'm looking at the counter, like I can't. It's a weird room. I mean, everything about this picture is weird. But whatever, man. Like, go for it if that's what you do. And yes, this is the most exciting thing we have to talk about, given the fact that I hate transfers. But coming into the summer, I mean, it's not really going that well, I guess, for Nathan Redmond and James Ward-Prowse because they've been dropped from Gareth Southgate's squad. But I mean, was that a surprise to you, or were you more kind of expecting that to happen prior to the Nations League finals coming up shortly?
Well, I think I was hopeful. The squad was cut down, but Redmond and Prowse, I don't know if they're still there, but they were still there after the official roster was cut down.
Sure.
And they trained there for a little bit. And in those friendlies, like Redmond and James Ward-Prowse scored after the roster was cut down. So that's just like a little frustrating. And I think Southgate kind of incriminated himself when he got hired, or near the beginning of his tenure, when he said that he was going to pick players based off of form and not just their name. And so when you see players out there like Jesse Lingard, who didn't have a great season, and Fabian Delph, who really didn't have a good season, and they're in the squad, but Redmond and James Ward-Prowse aren't, it's just kind of frustrating, especially when Redmond and James Ward-Prowse had such great seasons, and it seems like they do deserve a spot. But I do get the other side of the argument. Like Jesse Lingard, whenever he's put on an England shirt lately, he's performed. So it's almost like he's earned that spot. But I do just kind of wish Redmond and James Ward-Prowse were given that opportunity to prove themselves on the international stage instead of just in a random friendly here or there, or just in the preliminary squad.
Sure. I mean, Delph played, I think, 20 appearances total this season for a total of 1,219 minutes. Like, he wasn't on the pitch very often. 1 assist overall. Yeah, like you said, not a great season. He's 29, so you wouldn't say that there's. I mean, he's kind of on the down slope, I would say, of being at your peak in terms of age. And you have guys coming up in the squad that could make an impact and could potentially benefit from.
Delph isn't even playing his natural position for City.
Right.
He's stuck at left back when his natural position is a central midfielder.
Yeah, and I guess trying to find a justification for it. Is it potentially that he's 29 and been around a while and just the squad needs a little bit of leadership? Is that, I mean, could that be it, or is it just the versatility of him being able to play central midfield and left back? And I start to wonder exactly what the line of thinking is, and I'm almost not sure if it's even worth kind of going down this rabbit hole, because I'm not sure Southgate has the justification there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could talk ourselves in circles, but I'd make the counter argument for experience to say that this whole England squad is now experienced because of the World Cup run.
Okay.
And even though some players might be a little younger, they're just as experienced as Delph is just from game time, and especially during the World Cup. So
yeah,
I don't know. I do wish they were given a chance considering their form. And I know people also want to say like James Maddison didn't get a chance. He's not in the squad, is he?
No, I think he's playing for the under-23s who
that's right.
They have a tournament. Like they have an actual, they have
so many youth tournaments this summer.
Yeah. So it's the under-21 Euros.
That's right. Under-21 Euros. There's the U20 World Cup, and then there's the Toulon tournament.
Yeah. So I mean, and I guess that's a pretty decent segue. Like, suffice it to say that I think both Redmond and JWP got a little bit of the short end of the stick, but I think they were also kind of going to be there to fill in with so many guys out for getting ready for the Champions League final. Like with so many people gone, they needed people to be called in. So that probably explains why they're still there. And I think it probably is good that they both played so well, because it's just like, look, they've shown it even after the squad was cut down, they were able to play well in that friendly against the Young Lions and both score. And I mean, according to the highlight video, they looked pretty good. And I mean, they do that despite being shown the door already. That's got to do things for Southgate and saying like, look, these guys are still working hard and stuff like that. And that's what we want. Because you look at what Redmond did last year, going through the summer and coming back and being kind of a totally new player. If he makes another step anywhere close to that, I mean, he'll be. It'll likely be his last year in a Southampton shirt because everybody will want him.
It's true. And especially if they keep up their form going into the season, they have to be called up for some World Cup qualifiers in the fall when that starts up again. I can't see them not being a part of the squad going forward after this summer if they keep up their form.
Absolutely. And I think JWP is definitely doing it. And I think the little bit of the slightly harsher edge to him over the course of the season, I think should prove that he can sit in that midfield, kind of wherever Southgate needs him to be. So that'll be good. But I was going to say it was a nice transition into those of our players who actually made international rosters. And Sims is going to be away with the under-20s at the Toulon tournament. Højbjerg and Long both make their squads. I don't think that's any surprise. Vestergaard's left out, which I maybe that's injury, but he was left out as well later on in call-ups during the season as well. And I don't know if that's worrying to us or not.
It could be just a thing like him and the Danish manager. I don't even know who it is, but they don't get along.
Okay.
But it might be nice for him to have a little bit of a summer break.
Sure.
Because his season was a solid season. It wasn't amazing, but it was a solid season. So a nice little summer break for him to come back even stronger in the fall.
I was going to say, I think one of the stats that I found when I was putting together like the one-word season reviews with him was, if you look at the games that we played down the stretch without him. Okay, so since just after the Cardiff game, with Vestergaard in the lineup, 7 wins, 6 losses, 3 draws, 1.5 points per game. Without him, 1 win, 3 losses, 3 draws, 0.85 points per game. So like,
yikes.
That says something. And somebody else pointed out that I think all the games without him down the stretch, we lost by 2 goals. Like that was like something like that. Like I don't remember exactly what the guy said when they messaged me, but it was something along those lines. And I was quite surprised when I looked at that stat and said, like, dang, that's a big difference between him and the people who are replacing him in the lineup.
Yeah, Vestergaard, he is a really good defender. I know he had mixed reviews from some of the fans, but I think going forward, he's going to be one of our really strong defenders, like a starter almost every single week. I think it'll probably come down to him and Bednarik, who, depending on who we line up with, I don't think if we go 3 or 5 at the back going forward to the next season, we're also going to have to get a central defender.
Sure.
So I don't think he trusts Yoshida going forward because Yoshida's aging. And I really don't think he's going to trust Stephens going forward. But if we go 4 at the back, I think him and Bednarik will be really good options going forward.
Yeah, I think the biggest criticism of Vestergaard obviously was his pace.
Yeah.
But I think he's shown he can pass the ball. He can make that big cross-field kind of switch. And other than, I think he made a mistake. Was it against Cardiff?
I think it was against Cardiff.
I mean, other than that, I think, like you said, pretty solid. And so I know he was at the World Cup last year. He didn't play at all, but he was there. And so maybe he has a chance to work himself back in, especially with Højbjerg being the captain of our squad. Maybe Højbjerg, fights for him to go along. But then we go down the list, and I was kind of saying in the Patreon only episode that I recorded earlier this week, or late last week, I guess. Elyounoussi gets into the squad for Norway, and he's not even getting into Saints squad. And I guess that goes to show the kind of the difference in what some of these countries have to choose from. Like the fact that James Ward-Prowse and Nathan Redmond aren't getting into the England squad. I think they would walk into most other squads. Maybe not France, maybe not Spain, maybe not even Italy, but you look around at what some of these other guys have and where they're going, and I think they would get in. And so Moyes in, and you hope he seems to play better for Norway than he does for us a little bit, but you just hope that he can turn it around or make a good showing of himself, and somebody just goes, hey, we'll take him, and then that's fine.
Yeah, there's either I hope this is a spark for him and he comes back to Southampton a renewed player, or it gathers interest to send him off. His situation kind of reminds me of, there was a player for Chile named Eduardo Vargas, and whenever he would show up for Chile, he just played people off the park, but for his club team he was awful. And so maybe that's the same thing. Maybe he plays really well this summer, and another team's like, oh, we'll give him a chance, maybe he'll play better for us and we can ship him off for a decent fee. Or hopefully he comes back and does better for us next season.
Sure. I think those are the two positives that can come out of this,
Yeah.
And the other two that made squads were Stuart Armstrong and Angus Gunn, which Angus Gunn, probably no surprise that he's in there for the under-21s, and Armstrong either. I think they have a tough road ahead. They have I know they have to play Belgium coming up soon, so that will be tough for them, and you just wish him the best and hope he gets involved, and he'll be playing, I think, central midfield for them for the most part. So that'll be good. But I mean, that's kind of our summer in terms of players that are going out and playing, and I think most of them will have time off after by the end of June. I think they'll be mostly have a part of July off and then come back for preseason, so they don't really get much of a break if they're out on international duty.
It is nice to see a lot of our players are getting a rest, especially because I feel like for a few years now, there's just always been something big in the summer that takes a lot of players. And it's kind of nice to have almost a summer off. Like, I know a lot of these are Euro 2020 qualifiers or tournaments or games like that, but it's nothing as major as a Euro Championship or Confederations Cup or a World Cup that takes up just so much energy.
Sure. And yeah, this is a couple of games. They are important, but it's just like the international break. It's a week or two, and then they're off. And it's not a month-long tournament. It's not, for the most part, traveling. They're not going to Brazil. It's just kind of on the Yoshida thing. I mean, he played a decent amount this season. Is it if we get another central defender, he's probably the one that loses his spot and becomes the fourth choice again. And I mean, I guess, is he just becoming like the defensive kind of Stuart Taylor at this point? Like he's going to be around, but he's probably not going to play. He's going to have some sort of leadership role, and we're going to have a video of him drinking tea by the pool at some point.
I hope he retires at Southampton. He deserves it. He's been such a great servant for the club. He's always, when he's been called upon, he's always stood up and played well, and he seems to love the club. I hope we don't sell him or get rid of him. And even if he is just kind of phased out over the next year or two, I hope he does have the opportunity to retire here. Or, maybe he would want to go back to Japan to retire there. But I hope he is able to retire here, even if it is phased into a leadership role.
Yeah, I think, there was a time when people were pretty upset with him and worried about him whenever he was playing. You know, they weren't stoked on him being in the lineup just because he seemed to have a mistake in him every single game. But I think he's cleaned that up, and I think he's I don't know, he's been pretty dang good, and he's been pretty consistent, and he is the fastest of any center back we have.
It's not saying too much.
No, but I remember. So I remember there was a stat. This is down my Max Rushton, affinity. I guess I like the guy. But he used to do this show called Stat Attack, and they had one they would come up. They had these Sky Sports data analysts that would come in with these stats, and they would have them just like try to play the game and guess who was on the list or whatever, like top 10, whatever. And one of them was like, you know, the players with the fastest sprint speed in the Premier League. And I remember going like, Shane Long has to be on there, you know, and he was. And then they were like, well, there's another Southampton player, and people are naming all these people, and they're like, well, who? And it's like, well, it's Maya Yoshida. Like he's there.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He was
really
top
impressive.
10. And from that point on, I've been like, it's not represented on FIFA, like that's for sure, because I've been there and gone like, go faster, as Raheem Sterling just runs through on goal and beats me 16-0 or whatever it was. We don't have to talk about that because I'm a grown man. I don't need to talk about FIFA, but yeah. So I don't know. If that goes though, if the pace goes, then we're in serious trouble. Just as a defensive unit, I think. I guess the big tournament, not the other big tournament, the big tournament that's going on this summer though is the Women's World Cup, and I don't know, like, will you be watching? Because I was kind of listening to people and kind of thinking to myself, like, I think this is the first time that the Women's World Cup is going to get the kind of dedicated big media coverage, and there's the chance that people will, for the first time, really publicly, I guess, not organize, but study the game and kind of break down the game the same way we do with the men's game. You know, like every kick and pass is kind of broken down. We do it on this show. A lot of the bigger shows do it for major games and major tournaments and stuff like that. And so if that happens for the Women's World Cup for the first time, like, I think that's a step forward. But I'm also interested to see kind of how people, I guess, how people react to the criticism of the women's game if people have bad games and play poorly or whatever. And I'm kind of wondering how this is all going to kind of break down and how people are going to view it going forward.
Yeah, I've always gotten kind of excited for the Women's World Cup. It's always something, like, I don't watch women's soccer much outside of the Women's World Cup, but I always do try to tune in for the World Cup and at least watch the United States games because they're always pretty fun to watch. And what was really cool for me, so I guess in 2015 for the last Women's World Cup, I worked a soccer camp and where I was coaching little kids. And especially as the tournament went on, they'd come in and they'd be so excited, like, oh my gosh, did you just see that goal from Carly Lloyd? Or did you see what Tobin Heath did for the United States women's team? And it was really cool to see these little kids, both guys and girls, get so excited for the Women's World Cup. And I think it can only get better from there, no matter what the coverage is. You might get some harsher criticisms, but then that means you get better praises that go along with it. And it'll be cool to see how, I think Fox has it here in the States. It'll be cool to see how Fox covers that this summer.
Yeah, they had it last time as well. And I remember, I remember watching the final on my phone because I was at my father-in-law's house and they're not big soccer football people, but they, he's like, well, I'll put it on. Like, we're not watching anything else. And that was the game that, I think the USA put 5 past Japan.
That was a really insane game for a final, at least.
Scored from, inside our own half. And it is kind of weird because I follow the Dynamo here in the States and they have the Dash, which is their women's organization. And I follow some of those players. And I mean, you watch some of their training and stuff. They are elite athletes, just like the men are, and they play hard. They put in tackles. They can do things with the ball that I can't do. And, I don't know. I think for a long time, we just kind of, you almost write them off a little bit, and it's good to see them, I guess, kind of not being that way. And maybe by saying that, it just shows kind of my ignorance, or maybe it's just me, but I don't get that image or that feeling from, the number of people that I talk to, and I don't know. That's kind of where it's at, and of course Saints also have a women's team, and my loyalty there lies with the Southampton Women's Football Club, which is not associated with the team. So that's why we don't talk about them very often, although they did win the double this season. So yeah, that's that. But
yeah, we got to have a kick around with Ellie Krieger, who is one of the defenders for the women's national team. She came last year while I was working with Nashville Soccer Club, and that was really cool. You got to kick around with her and just see how good she was. And just, I mean, it wasn't anything fancy. We just passed around and juggled a little bit, but it was still cool to have the opportunity and see the talent that she does have.
Yeah, one of the stories I think that I remember the most was when Dom Dwyer was dating Sydney Leroux.
Yeah, they're married now.
They're married now and have a kid, and they went home to one of their houses for Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that, and they went out in the yard just to to pass the ball back and forth or get outside, and it turned into like full on slide tackles in the mud, like in the snow mud thing, and the parents were like, "You're gonna kill each other, like what are you doing?" And it just turned into, they have this competitive kind of like edge to them that they're both out there trying to do it. And so like I think about that stuff, and I think like that's I guess that's what I want for my kids. I want them to be able to go do things with their spouse and to have that competitive edge and just be whatever it is. Not that they're going to be professional athletes. I don't think that's in the cards, but like they, I don't know. I hear that story and it's like, oh, that's a nice story. Like that makes me happy. And it shows that, maybe it's just Cindy LaRue, but she's pretty competitive, and, they got to balance a lot of things. Like, when it comes to having a family, guys' role, not as tough as the women's role, especially, we're not taking a year off to house a baby, and try to recover from that. I speak from experience of having watching my wife carry a child and going like, I'm going to go to work because that seems way easier than what you're doing. I don't know. I guess that kind of wraps it up. Unless you have other thoughts on the World Cup, and the only thing I would think of is Ada Hutterberg not playing for Norway, but that's a personal stance she's taken based on Norway, what she perceives as Norway's kind of unfair treatment or unequal treatment of the women, and she is the Women's Footballer of the Year and the Women's Ballon d'Or winner, and we're not going to see her at the World Cup, and that's unfortunate for Norway and for the fans, but I think I have to kind of respect her decision there. Yeah,
it's not a situation I'm too familiar with. I do think obviously the tournament would be better with her, but she has her reasons for not playing for Norway and boycotting, but it is something that I'm not too familiar with. I do wish she was in the tournament though.
Yeah, for sure. It's I've spent probably more time than I'd like to admit reading up on it. And we always thought, the kind of running thought of my family was that we were mostly German and Norwegian on my dad's side, and all Italian on my mom's side. Turns out I'm a third English, and only 8% Norwegian. So it's not nearly as important to me as it would have been. But I still would have wished them well, especially because the Norway team for the men, always struggle a little bit. So, Norway's going to miss her, but I think there's a bigger issue there, and sometimes you have to have that form of protest. And we're going to the civil rights movement in class, and I brought that up as an example of how people are doing this today. The students cared less than you might think, but yeah. So I don't know. Moving on to I guess more Southampton centric stuff, because that's I guess what the show is about. We announced the partnership with the Japanese side. We have, some one of the former coaches was indicted on 45 accounts of, I think it wasn't indecent exposure, but it was, I wrote about it in the newsletter, and it's not pleasant, but it looks like the club's doing everything they can to comply and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So we just hope that is the case. And the other thing that the team has announced is their preseason tours, or we can just jump straight into transfers. It's totally up to you, because we have one question from Dan, and we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the preseason tour. The dates were Austria, which makes sense. Obviously, with Ralph as the new manager, it makes sense that he wanted to do something in Austria. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit in Ireland, and then there's the game in Macau, which is for obvious reasons with Gao as the owner. Mm-hmm. But it isn't mainland China, which I guess is a little different, but the game in Macau will still be a little interesting. I know this isn't I'm an American guest on an American hosted podcast show, but I do wish Southampton would come back to the States. They haven't done a proper American tour in what seems like forever. And they had that little bit of like a closed training session in Baltimore, so that doesn't really count. But I do wish they would come back to the States.
Yeah, and that thing in Baltimore was mostly for it was basically to announce the partnership with Under Armour, right? Like,
yeah, that's right.
That's what it was. And I mean, it's probably just me complaining, but it costs as much for me to fly to Baltimore as it does to fly to London if I book it the right way, you know? So
really?
Yeah, it's half the distance, but you can get it for the same price or even pay more to go to Baltimore if you have to go kind of in a hurry.
The United States is just so big.
yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people realize just how big the United States is and how much time it takes to get from here in Nashville to over there in California where you are, or even Nashville up to Boston or Nashville to Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like one of my good friends is from Baltimore, and it's an 11-hour drive to get from Nashville back to Baltimore.
Yeah.
So
yes. So if I fly from here to Baltimore, that's the same time in a plane as it is to fly from Baltimore to London.
That's crazy.
And so, I mean, the people who live on the East Coast, they have to put up with living on the East Coast, but they are much closer to now something that is important to me, you know? And so you think about, that's the thing about like Major League Baseball and MLS and all these other things, all these other major sports is these guys are traveling, just, you know, they're spending a lot more time traveling than some of the other, you know, than some of the teams in England who, you know, they have it's an hour and a half, maybe long flight from one end of England to the other. It's just not quite the same, but
I hate to pull out like a personal story from this that probably not a lot of listeners will get, but in hockey, Nashville Predators are in the Western Conference for whatever reason when they were dividing the conferences. And so one of the conference games that they have to play multiple times this season is Vancouver. And from Nashville to Vancouver, that drive is over 24 hours. And I know they fly, but that is so far away. And even for MLS teams, like there is a Vancouver team, and the Orlando team has to go up there to play Vancouver. And that's even farther. So it's just crazy sometimes how much travel these teams do have to put up with. And I know that's off topic, but
no, not at all. I was just listening to the truck go by. That sounded like was that your house or my house?
Mine? It was probably mine. I live close to an interstate in my apartment, and they're doing construction on the interstate right now, which is a little bit of an annoyance. So sorry if that came through.
No, it's all right. I was trying to listen to see if it was my neighbor or not. He's they're redoing it doesn't matter. They're redoing a part of their property, and it's a lot of jackhammering and a lot of skill saw and a lot of basically just a lot of beer and watching him work because I don't really help very much. But I mean, the game in Macau, I think there was talk they were just going to take kind of a split squad, you know, take a couple guys over there, play a game, come back. Is that kind of the plan? And because it can't be great training. I think they went there last year, and I know Ben and the guys from the Total Saints podcast have talked about it a little bit, that it kind of derailed things. It wasn't a great training environment for them, and it kind of didn't start well. And I'm not going to give Mark Hughes that excuse, but it definitely wasn't the best in terms of training.
Yeah, I will say Macau in the summer just seems hot and muggy, and unbearable. And obviously just the travel, like we were just talking about travel, like getting from Southampton down to Macau is like multiple layovers. That's not a straightforward flight. And the jet lag there, they obviously aren't going to spend that much time there, and then flying back. And it's just having to deal with all the jet lag that's going to bring. And it will probably halt things for a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like land, train, sleep, play, leave. I think that's the plan. I could be wrong, but I think that's from what I remember and stuff like that. That's the plan. And the rest of the team will be in Dublin at that point and training in Ireland, which I know you got to make the appearances. I just hope that the training is focused on what the team needs. Commercially, I think you will grow more if you are successful than if you make appearances places that already kind of know who you are. Like I imagine everybody in Dublin knows that there's a Southampton, you know? So I'm not sure exactly how this goes, but we'll watch. And as soon as they put it on YouTube, I will be more than happy to tune in and stay with it. But, yeah. I don't know. You have anything else on the preseason stuff, or you want to jump into some of the transfers that we've been lucky enough to be graced with from the wonderful news sources that we have?
Let's jump into transfers.
All right. Where would you like to start?
I guess we could start with Dragowski. That came out this morning.
Okay.
And that's a really, really exciting transfer if that goes through. I know multiple sources are showing that that's a move that's going to happen. And man, he has looked like a really exciting goalkeeper that's coming up through. There was a game against Empoli where he played for Empoli, against Atalanta, where he made like 17 or 18 saves just in that one game and kept it 0-0. And I know Empoli got relegated, but man, he has looked really, really good.
Okay. I know zero things about him other than he's a goalkeeper and that we have several.
Yeah, I know that Ralph is probably going to sit down, and I think it's pretty clear that Forster's on his way out. And then if McCarthy is on his way out, then Dragowski can slide in there really well and either have a tandem thing where Dragowski starts all the league games and Gunn has all the cup games or whatever. But I do think a new keeper is not needed, but almost welcomed, just with the inconsistencies we've had over the past few seasons, with McCarthy starting out great and then ending up not so great, and then Forster's drop off, and then Gunn is young, so he's still a little inconsistent, and so Dragowski's a world class talent, and bringing him in can only mean good things.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stats and stuff, he looks pretty good. He's young, which that would be another young keeper we have, and you just kind of wonder what, I don't know, like I think it's going to be easier to move McCarthy on than it will be to move Forster on. And I don't know, I think you have to get rid of both of them for Dragowski to come in, and I would understand if we were in a situation we're going to be playing like a European Cup competition, you know, like we were going to be in the Europa League or something like that, then I would understand, I guess, this move a little bit more. I think this is I don't know. I'm not sure if I like it or not. Just simply because I think I want Gunn to know that he's the man. But maybe he isn't. Maybe he shouldn't be. Maybe I just, you know, I feel really bad for players when they come in and play relatively well and then you make a mistake and find themselves out. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. And I mean,
I wonder how much of it is the Polish connection. I wonder how much of it was Bednarek saying, "Hey, we got to get Dragowski in."
Sure.
Like Bednarek would probably know him better than anybody else in the squad. And I wonder if a scout or somebody has brought Dragowski just to the table.
Sure. And
Bednarek has just name dropped him to Hassan Hoodle or whoever's dealing with the transfers now, because we don't have Les Reed or Ralph Kruger. So I'm wondering how much influence Bednarek has had.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you try to make those connections and the comfort level and things like that of people, and you know, Gunn, Stevens isn't playing in the England setup at the moment, and so you want that comfort and that connection to be there, I guess, and maybe this is a better fit if we go Bednarek, Dragowski, and Vestergaard at the back. Maybe that helps a little bit. Maybe that's a little bit more solid than maybe having Gunn in there, but we'll see. And I'm hoping that by the time, I mean, it's like I said, we're recording Saturday. Hopefully by the time this comes out on Tuesday, you know, he hasn't gone somewhere else, and I just have to live with the fact that this will be us talking about this guy for a while. But if it is, it is. So, I mean, we've been linked with a number of other players. I'm not sure how seriously to take all of them, and probably not. But is there anybody else that you think is a relatively solid?
There's that winger Genepo. He's Belgian. He plays for Standard Liège. We've been linked to him. He seems like a pretty nice talent. AC Milan's been linked to him too. So if we get him, it seems like that would be a great buy as well. He's somebody that we need. I don't know that much about him, but for what I see about him, he could be, I hate to use this comparison, but the next Mane. Just somebody exciting and electric that brings a different dynamic to the team. That would be really, really great going forward. And he's somebody that I would like to see brought in. On that same note, somebody with a similar play style, it seems, Ademola Lookman. Hasenhüttl managed him for Leipzig when he was on loan there, and I think there could be a connection there. And he's not getting that much game time for Everton, so I think he'd be another player that I'd love to see in.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats for Genepo here, and I mean, 11 goals this season, 3 in the Europa League and 5 appearances. That's not bad. 6 assists as well to go along with that. So, granted, you look at some of the you look at the league stats and look at the league he's playing in and say, oh, okay, whatever that means. But then you look at, if he's doing it in the Europa League, that's a little bit better. But then again, I give you Mohamed El Yunusi. So
yeah,
I haven't watched. I don't know a ton about him. I try really hard to stay away from this stuff just because I'll wind up down the YouTube rabbit hole really easily, and I just don't want to do that. But he everything you read about him sounds good, and we'll just have to see if that's somewhere where we are going to look to improve. I think I would. If he comes in, that fills in the other side of the across from Redmond. If he plays, across from him a little bit, or I'm not sure how it fits in the 4-2-2-2 formation or not. But we'll have to wait and see, and hopefully we'll see some players start to move here before preseason gets underway.
It's hard this summer with all of the players that we're going to have to sell. We still have Jordi Classy on the books. We have Boufal and Hoot and Carrillo and just a lot of these big wage suckers that we're either going to have to play or get rid of. And we can't see them go out on loan again. And I guess you could add Cedric to that list as well. Just a bunch of these players that are going to take up a lot of wages if we don't sell them. And I really hope we get rid of at least a big chunk of them so that we can spend money to bring these players in.
Sure, absolutely. It's gonna be important, and it might take more than one window, which is not anything anybody wants to hear, but that might honestly be the truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to make sure we covered most of the major stuff here. We have a question from Dan. Do you have anything else we want to talk about before we get to the question that Dan sent in?
I just want to mention U20 World Cup. I'm really curious to see if any of our scouts are there. I really hope they are. There's some pretty nice talent at this U20 World Cup, and it would be really cool to see maybe one or two, probably just one of these U20 talents brought in, whoever they're from, whether that is from France or I know Portugal's out, but maybe the United States. The United States has looked pretty good. I really hope our scouts are there to pick up maybe one or two of these talents.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't. I don't know. It's one of those things I probably haven't watched enough of it to really see, and it seems like the players drop in and out so often that it's tough to keep up at the youth level with what players are going. But definitely be watching some of the U.S. guys and hoping that they make an impact, and hopefully we can get to them. Hopefully
I've been really interested to watch the U20 World Cup because there are a couple of guys from my hometown that my little brothers played against.
Okay.
And so that's really cool to watch a couple of these guys play for the United States. Chris Richards and Brandon Cervania. Sam has been able to play against them as kids, and so it's cool to watch them do so well for the United States.
And Sam needs encouragement at this moment in time. We'd like to take a moment to mourn Arsenal, especially the second half. So sorry, Sam. I'm not sure if you listen to this show or not, but I'm sorry. That was supposed to be really serious and heartfelt, and I'm not sure if it was or not. But I do feel bad. My best friend's also an Arsenal fan. Not a great day. Didn't talk to him. We saw each other yesterday. Did not talk about it at all. He would not. Every time I started to ask, he just was like, immediately changed conversation, which I thought was great. All right. We have a question from Dan here. And we can always rely on Dan to give us the hard-hitting stuff. So he says, who wins in a fight, prime Mike Tyson or 300 otters?
It's a really tough question. It depends on the mindset of the otters, because 300 otters, I think, could take down Mike Tyson given the amount of time and how they're able to target Mike Tyson. I think it could go either way depending on the strategy of the otters. Because if the 300 otters just swarm him, I think they could win against Mike Tyson.
So here's my question: is how much water is Mike Tyson standing in? Is it waist deep? Is it knee deep? Is it chest deep?
I think even out of water, the otters could still win.
I think so.
But if it is in water, that gives the otters an obvious advantage.
Yeah. So George, who I don't know who this guy is, and he doesn't follow me. Oh, he does follow me. Sorry, George. So George does follow me. But he says they're not intelligent enough to think and be able to overpower him. I'm not up to date with my otter brain size or
otters. I feel like otters are pretty smart. I'll give them a little more credit than George does. I mean, you see them as some of the smarter animals of at least the marine biosphere. Like they're up there with dolphins as pretty smart creatures. So, I'll give them the intelligence. I'll give them some intelligence.
Well, so otters fairly smart. Mike Tyson tattooed his face. So, and bit somebody's ear. So that's true. I'm going to have to give it to the otters. I want the otters to win. I'm pulling for them. I will lay some money down. That's what I want out of this fight that I honestly hope never happens. I don't ever actually want to see this period. But, yeah. So thanks, Dan, for sending that in. He's at Holy Hoiberg. If you want more stuff like that, I'm sure he will be happy to give that to you. But Christian, I mean, you have anything else you want to go over before we wrap this up and get on with our preparations for the Champions League final, which basically means just probably drinking a lot?
I think this is a huge summer for our club. I really hope Hasenhüttl is able to stamp his authority down, and I hope he's able to get what he wants from the board. I want to see him bring the players that he wants in, and I think if he gets what he wants and everything goes according to plan, we could see another top 10 finish from Saints. I think we really could. And I've gotten some flack for that, at least from some of my other friends, but I really could see us getting top 10 again. Maybe that's a little too optimistic, but I think I could see us charging for a Europa League spot if all goes according to plan. But yeah, it is a really big summer. It could be make or break. Yeah,
no, I think that if it all goes well, I think we definitely have that opportunity and that chance. And I'm not going to be overly disappointed if we're not there yet, if it takes another year. But yeah. I think fans will begin to get uneasy because they think if you don't give Hasenhüttl what he wants, people are going to notice who he is and they're probably going to take him from us, And so you need to, there's a balance there, and I'm not sure exactly where the line is, but you need to allow him the players he needs to make it work. He's already shown he can improve players we have. But you need to also have the players in that fit the system and get some of these guys out. And Southampton have made, they went through a period several years ago where they made just fantastic signings. And then they went through a period where they missed on several. And it's caused a backup in the squad that we need to fix. That will allow us to maybe bring in some of the players that we need for Ralph to be able to do some more working and move us up the table. And if it takes another year, I'll be okay. If it happens this year, I'll be as happy as anybody, obviously. But Christian, this has been great, and thanks again for being so willing to come on the show, to write for the newsletter, just to do kind of all the things that help us continue to talk and help us be able to just make the show happen and the newsletter happen. And I just appreciate it very much.
No, I always appreciate coming on. So thank you again for inviting me.
No problem, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.
And that does it for this episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to Christian Candler, thanks for coming on the show so frequently and for contributing to the newsletter with the fantastic things that you do. For anybody, if you don't subscribe, you'll have some writing from Christian in the newsletter, so you should subscribe. It'll be out this Friday. You can follow Christian on Twitter at Candler Nero, and you can get him on Instagram at c.ndler. The links are in the show notes. That makes it easier because I may have messed that up, even though I'm reading it. I don't know. Whatever. If you want to follow this show on social media, a little dormant this week, but we'll be back to full strength soon. We're on Twitter at SFCDELL_IVERY. That is the same on Instagram. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/SFC Delivery. There's no underscore in the Facebook address. And if you want an easy way to get to all of those links, just head over to southamptondelivery.com. From there, you can listen to the show. You can subscribe to the show. You can follow us on social media. And you can subscribe to the newsletter. It's a website. It has all those links. It's good. Visit it. Check it out. Let me know what you think. If you don't subscribe to the show already, you don't know how to do that. Any podcast app that you have, if you have an iPhone, maybe use Acast, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, or wherever else you listen, just search for Southampton Delivery there, and we'll be there. And like I said, there are links on the show's website. Make it nice and easy for you. Special shout out to Jay, who runs the partner page for the show. The Southampton page is a place to go for all your news and needs over the summer. During the season, it does not matter. Follow them. You will be up to date with what's going on each and every moment with Saints. The logo for the show is designed by Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page. He's so good at the graphic design that he now does it for Saints. It's pretty impressive. I'm lucky to be able to feature some of his work on this show. All music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Boddington Bear. I'm off to grade some more beautifully written, wonderfully structured pieces of student writing that contain no factual errors whatsoever. Anyway, we'll be back next week. Don't forget to check out the newsletter, which will be out on Friday morning. And until then, remember that together, we march on.